What's going on, BLV football fans? It's Mitch here with the one and only KDC, Kevin Durcant, and Ultra, the Chiefs fan. It's Mitch, aka Kyle the Shanna Stan, back with another Super Bowl video. And honestly, I'm getting a little bit just kind of bored about talking about the same game for the last 2 weeks, but I'm also at the same time extremely pumped for the game. I am a lot more excited for this Super Bowl than last Super Bowl, than the previous Super Bowl, and this is the most anticipated Super Bowl game for a multitude of reasons, which we'll discuss in this video, in this podcast, in this probable 2-hour conversation here on the Bottom Line View between Ultra, Durcant, and myself about everything Chiefs-Niners. Since the Bucks and the Chiefs, when Tom Brady layeth the smack-a-downeth on Patrick Mahomes' candy ass. Hopefully the Niners can do that in this Super Bowl. But I'm just expecting a good game. I'm expecting some fun. And I think there's so much narrative coming out of Radio Row, which I always have a lot of fun with, not only making videos and having conversations about the Super Bowl each year, but I think one of the best parts, especially when you've got that cell phone at your fingertips nowadays, is just the ability to see like all your favorite content in one place at one time. And there's nothing quite like, seeing, Radio Row at the Super Bowl, all these celebrities, all these legends, all these great football players, these media people, and they're all talking about the same thing: who's going to win the Super Bowl. That's a lot of fun. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the preview so far. The best bets, the matchup videos, the game plan videos, the pick video. Go check that out if you haven't already. Gronk spiked the like button. Unless you're a Swiftie, Kelsey spiked the like button. Let's get into the conversation about Niners and Chiefs. Members only comment section. So members, let us have it. Let us know what you think. I also just posted a fan prediction video where I go through my comments and I just reply to everybody that made a prediction about the game. That was actually a lot of fun. So go check that video out. Let's begin with Ultra and just your overall thoughts on the discussion about this game, your overall thoughts about the discourse revolving around Super Bowl 58.
Yeah, so it just kind of hit me, actually. You mentioned the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl, and I just remembered, like, we were all on BLV versus Consensus to preview that game. We've been doing this show for 4 years now. This is the 4th year of BLV versus Consensus. So it didn't hit me that we had that
what?
kind of
Seriously?
Yeah, is that a real stat?
This is the 4th year. We did
because Durcant hasn't always been there.
No, because Durcant took a year off and
Lenny
I'm
was
getting
there.
old, man.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hit me there. But yeah, I'm super excited for this game on both a personal and general level. Generally, these have been the two best franchises, the two most successful franchises overall for the last 5 years. Obviously, the Chiefs have been far and away the best. San Francisco, even though they haven't won the Super Bowl, the Rams have, the Bucks have. They have the second most playoff wins. They've made 4 of the last 5 NFC title games. This is their second Super Bowl now. It just feels these are two heavyweights going at it for all the marbles in Vegas. And we're going to see history either way Sunday night in Vegas. Because either we will see the first back-to-back champion in 20 years. We will see the official validation beyond any shadow of a doubt of a dynasty in the NFL if the Chiefs win. Or if the 49ers win, we will have a completely new look on Kyle Shanahan's legacy. We will start to look at the 49ers 5-year run as one of the better ones in recent NFL history. And Brock Purdy will become the most famous man in sports for the next 6 months. So that would be unbelievable. Either way, there would be so many storylines. Of course, there's the Mahomes GOAT narrative if he wins this game, which Mitch will hate. But that's going to happen, whether you like it or not. People are going to talk about it. And I'm just super excited. And on a personal level, I'm excited. Because it just feels right that in this year, in a year where it felt like there weren't a ton of great teams in the NFL. We thought the Ravens were probably the best team, and then they did what they did a couple weeks ago against the Chiefs. It just feels right that for Mitch Mulaney, his favorite team this year in the NFL has been the San Francisco 49ers. All year has been backing them to win the Super Bowl. And they're going up against the team he loves nothing more than to mock, to ridicule, to destroy, the Kansas City Chiefs. And one of those two teams are gonna win the Super Bowl. And Mitch is either gonna look like a genius or he's gonna look like an idiot. And I'll be tuned in either way to see what his reaction is towards that. But I'm super excited for the game. And I can't wait to preview it here with you guys. And I can't wait to watch it.
Ultra, on that note, bro, at least I am bold enough and at least I have enough cojones to actually make a fucking pick. Because all these jabronis out there are like, no, I can't pick this game. I don't want to pick this game, bro. Like, all these people are like, oh, this is their analysis. I can't bet against Mahomes. Give me the Chiefs. Can we break the game down? Talk about why the Chiefs are going to win. There's no problem. Take the Chiefs. I don't care.
And
but at least tell me why.
Yeah. And so real quickly, before Durcant goes, do we have anything to say about the last 2 weeks and what's been coming out about the 49ers and all of the stories between the practice field, the fire alarm, everything?
I didn't hear
I
about
feel like the NFL has handled this extremely poorly. The fact that we're talking about a practice field and not how George Kittle matches up with the Chiefs linebackers over the past 2 weeks, that pisses me off.
Okay, genuinely though, like this is the first thing. I know Durcant wants to get in here. The only thing I want to say is I still don't understand why the NFL allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to practice in the Raider
because they're the home team
facility.
The home team always gets the
Do you
NFL
not
stadium.
know the Raiders and the Chiefs hate each other for years?
It doesn't matter though. It's like if the home team gets the stadium. If the Niners had beaten the Eagles last year, they would have been the home team and they would have been.
Bro, the Raiders and the Chiefs goes back to like 1960.
I get it. The Raiders and Niners are rivals though too. Ask any.
Come on, man.
I mean, not to the same.
I still think it's kind of crazy. I also think that's on Goodell. That's on the NFL. I don't know what you can give the Niners for, but that's bullshit.
I agree. It's total
bullshit. I don't know if you can give them like money or what compensation, but that to me is garbage. The fire alarm thing I think's happened in the past in games before. I've heard of that before happening in games involving the Patriots, I think.
But the NFLPA reviewed the stadium and said it was unfit to practice in. Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. I haven't really spent much time on it. I just think it's bullshit. It's just another thing, though, that the Niners can put on the bulletin board and say this is another thing that, we have to overcome, and hopefully they can just use that as motivation. That's it.
Yep.
There can't.
All right. So I guess I'm just going to monologue real quick because this is the end of the year. And I'm in a way like burnt out because I feel like I've just been so invested in this season for what's been 20 weeks now. And it's finally over basically. And I'm in a way ready for it to come to an end. I want the Niners to win. I don't know if the Niners are going to win. I'm not sure if I'm going to pick the Niners to win, but either way, I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm content with whoever wins. I'm a little bit disappointed that this is the matchup because I feel like there's a good argument that neither of these teams deserve to be in this game. I'm just going to be honest.
There's also a good argument that the best team in the NFL had the worst game plan of all time 2 weeks ago.
There is an argument that both of these teams squeaked by both of their playoff wins in the last their last two playoff games. So, that kind of, I don't know. Are we getting the two best teams in this Super Bowl? Maybe, maybe not.
I think
but
the 49ers are without a doubt the best team in the NFC.
Yeah,
I
I don't see.
super weird, but if we're talking about the entirety of the season, the
I
49ers
don't know.
best with the NFC best team. In the
Yeah,
AFC,
like they got a little lucky to get there, but at the end of the day, they've kind of they beat every team in the NFC.
Yeah, they beat-
Like, legitimately every single
They
team in the
cashed
NFC
everybody.
playoffs.
and
The Chiefs,
The
what I'll say
Chiefs-
about the Chiefs to
just
defend the
don't go to
Chiefs,
the Ravens.
like the Ravens didn't do their best with the game plan, but it's still the Chiefs at the end of the day. Like I mean, they might not be as good as years past, or they might not be as good as the Ravens
We'll find out on Sunday.
out of
maybe.
100 games. But NFL has decided in one game, and
Right.
they were the better team in that game. And at the end of the day, like, I honestly think it was a pretty close call between the Ravens and Chiefs last week. I leaned towards the Ravens because I thought they would be able to execute certain things that they didn't go out and execute. But at the same time, I wasn't shocked the Chiefs won. So
I
like,
wasn't surprised either.
I feel like
disappointed.
it's the two
I think
best.
we were more
It's the
shocked
two
at
best
how they
teams.
won.
I
I
think
was
the Chiefs,
disappointed in Baltimore.
the Chiefs,
don't-
based
here's
on the
what's-
last couple games, deserve to be in the Super Bowl.
Here's
I
what
agree.
I will say. And we can maybe get into this. We'll get into this, but I'm not convinced San Francisco is better than Baltimore. Just how that game went, how both of these teams have played. In most statistics, San Francisco is actually a little worse. There's a chance if the
Well,
Chiefs win
all
this
I
game
can
by 10 to
speak
14 points, there's a chance the Chiefs win this game by 10 to 14. I'm not saying it'll happen. And we look back and say, maybe the AFC was a lot better than the NFC this year.
Yeah, but I could also speak to a majority of sports books, handicappers, myself. I make power rankings every week. And for 90% of the season, the Niners were looked at as the superior team. And even after they lost, I stated that they would be the team I'd most likely pick to win the Super Bowl. So, and I did pick them to win the Super Bowl over the Ravens.
But how much?
Yeah, I mean, one game shifted the perspective of a lot of people because of the interceptions and things. And I've talked about that many times. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on the Ravens because they're not in the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, that's like, I love Lamar, but he's got to play better in the playoffs. And the team's got to play better in the playoffs. And they have not shown that. And that's what I think we're getting in this Super Bowl. We're getting two teams that are unfazed by the moment. They have built a strength mentally to be good in these games. The Niners have proven that they can come back in games, something that no one thought they could under Kyle Shanahan. The Chiefs have proven to win in a multitude of ways, defensively, offensively. And that's what I love about the Super Bowl. On top of, this is where I want to start with the game preview, is I think this Super Bowl I'm having such a tough time with in terms of projecting the vision of what's going to happen, because I think the coaches are so awesome in this game that it makes it very hard to actually envision what's going to happen with 2 weeks to prepare for the game. What's Shanahan going to look like on offense? Like, what are they actually going to do? What are they going to throw at the Chiefs? Like, he could very well come out with plays that they haven't ran all year in the first couple drives. The Chiefs could come up with blitzes and coverages and different looks that we haven't seen from them all year. Andy Reid could have plays and different like tweaks to the offense that we haven't seen all year. So it makes this Super Bowl, especially in the first half, very interesting. I think the Chiefs are going to be the team that is more likely to be prepared early in the game. And I think that's just naturally how the two teams play a little bit. But I'm intrigued to see how it goes just from a coaching standpoint. I think that is the narrative that no one is really pushing that should be pushed. The fact that we have the two best head coaches in football, and then also on top of that, one of the best defensive coordinators of all time, with on the other side, a super talented roster. So I think this Super Bowl is going to be a lot of fun. And where do we want to begin with that?
Yeah, I think just from both coaches, Andy Reid, I think at this point is a made man. I think he'll go down as an NFL legend. 2 Super Bowls, another 2 appearances. Now he's made another appearance. If he wins again, he's starting to get into that territory where if he wins this one and probably another, people are going to start arguing that he's the greatest coach of all time. And he's just done so much in his career that the guy's a legend. He's a top 10 coach, arguably top 5 coach of all time for sure. Kyle Shanahan's fascinating to me because I think no matter what happens Sunday night in Vegas, I think Kyle Shanahan I'll look at as after that game as one of the 2 or 3 best, maybe the best coach in the NFL. I think the guy is wonderful as a schemer. I think the way he's been able to succeed consistently with subpar to maybe above average, but non-elite quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo certainly was not. Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm not convinced he's a top tier guy either. And the way that he's been able to just not only succeed, but build an offense around those guys and scheme around those guys and consistently produce with those guys has been phenomenal. And I think everybody gives him a lot of credit for that. Most people view him as the best play caller and schemer in the NFL. I think we also, when we think of Kyle Shanahan, we think of 3 games, specifically 2 games. We think of one as an offensive coordinator when he was in Atlanta. We think of one as a head coach against the Chiefs a few years ago. And then also there was the 10-point blown lead against the Rams and his coaching rival 2 years ago in the NFC title game. And like it or not, that's what people remember when they think of Kyle Shanahan past the play calling and scheming stuff. And a part of that I think is a little unfair because if you look at those games, he had just totally the quarterback edge, especially in the San Francisco ones, was massive. And the fact that they were in those positions is in part due to his brilliance. And I don't think you can argue that any other coach could have done better with those quarterbacks, really. Even Andy Reid, for as brilliant as he didn't win a Super Bowl until he got Patrick Mahomes. But I also think there is some legitimacy to his play calling in those games not being as good as it could have been towards the end. And I do think if he wins the Super Bowl, that'll go away. But if he loses this one, he'll start to gather the narrative as somebody who can't win the big one. And whether that's fair or not, I think that'll certainly become a thing that becomes more and more of a talking point than it already is. But like you said, I can't wait for the opening script. I know these guys have cooked up something good. And I do think we can get into the game later, but I do think the 49ers offensively have some more edges than people are saying.
2 things on that I want to say quickly. First of all, Jimmy Garoppolo picked the Chiefs in this game. I thought that was genuinely hilarious when I saw he said 35-31. Apparently, this is going around Twitter. So Jimmy is full heel on the Niners. And on the other thing I want to say is that's actually a point that's been circulating in my mind is just how good Kyle Shanahan teams have been in the first half of Super Bowls. Because they were very bad. I mean, they've been very bad in the first half of the last couple playoff games.
The Atlanta Super Bowl against New England, where they just to New England.
I just remember watching that game being like, I don't even know what's happened. I don't even this.
Belichick was lost. He was
this defense is the best in the league, and I don't even know what's going on. Guys are wide open. The runs are just gashing us. I have no idea what's going on in the first half. And then then they were up 20-10 or something. And they had a strong first half in the first Kansas City game, which is obviously more transferable to this one. And that was a lot of Kyle. If you watch that game, a lot of it was very kind of easy on Jimmy. And there was even a couple plays there. I think Kittle had a push off.
And they had an interception early. We think of that as a huge lead, but 10 points in the NFL.
Yeah, 10.
It's not that big, but also the first half was pretty even, but they dominated the third and early fourth quarter is why we remember that, I think, more. But yeah, that was a great Kyle.
That's something that I'm thinking of. Can that happen in this game? Because I feel if that can happen in this game, they're going to win. That's my sense. But I'm not sure if that's going to happen because of the last 2 games they've played in the playoffs. So
yeah.
Durcant, where do you have any points on that or any thoughts on that?
It is a fascinating coaching match, but I also think, to kind of add to what you were saying, the Chiefs are a much different team than they were in that Super Bowl. They can't put up 21 points in 5 minutes the way that they were doing in every single playoff game during that run. And I also think the 49ers as an offense, they don't have Jimmy G, and they're a lot more stable. And I think Kyle Shanahan knows like this is a big narrative game for him. Like this is a must-win game for his own legacy, because I feel like there's a large crowd. One of the people that is in that crowd is in this chat that will criticize Kyle Shanahan because it seems like every time he's in a big game, his team manages to either blow a lead or he just has some questionable play calling in fourth quarters or whatever it may be. And I think this is the best team that he's ever had.
More game management, actually.
He is in full control. He's got the quarterback that he wanted, so he doesn't have any excuse. He's got the offensive player of the year. So Kyle Shanahan, this is a must-win for him. Andy Reid is a made man. Spags is a made man, and I'm glad that the Chiefs' defense is finally getting the respect that they deserve. I think they've been very underrated throughout this dynasty run. I'm putting that in quotes because I don't think it's a dynasty unless they win this game. But yeah, throughout this run, I think the Chiefs defense, even if statistically this is the best that they've ever had and they've never quite been top 3 like they are right now, they seem to always come through when it matters. Spag seems to always outcoach his opponent when it matters. So I don't know. It's a fascinating matchup. I think Spags against Shanahan is going to be really interesting to see who wins that matchup early, because I think the early part of the game is going to really dictate whether or not the Chiefs can win this game at all, just because of the way their team is built and the way that they've been winning their playoff games during this run.
I also think, real quickly before Mitch goes, like in those big games that we talked about, the running backs that like in the Atlanta Super Bowl, love Devontae Freeman, love Tevin Coleman.
Coleman got hurt too.
The first 49ers Super Bowl was Coleman and Raheem Mostert. And then against the Rams, he was handing it off to Eli Mitchell and Deebo Samuel with sweeps and stuff like that. Now he's got a top 2 finisher in the Heisman Trophy race, a multiple-time Offensive Player of the Year, just won it again last night. Congrats to Christian McCaffrey. The guy is a world destroyer at running back, and so he's a lot better than anyone else that he's had at that position. And yeah, I think that'll be huge to determining the game.
I think that's the ultimate kind of question. Like, they traded for Christian McCaffrey, and I respect the 49ers as an organization because they've been willing to go out and make moves even when they've had one of the best teams in football. They always have tried to keep boosting their already stacked roster to get over the top finally. It seems like they've been so close for so long now, and they just haven't got. So is the McCaffrey trade going to be what puts them over the top? I think is the question to be answered.
Yeah, so we'll get into this game preview. I just want to say, to finish up that kind of coaching legacy thing, it's pretty wild to me. I mean, I just saw a stat on Twitter. Shanahan is undefeated, 6-0 as a playoff head coach when he is favored. That also carries into his record in general in the playoffs, which I brought up with Lenny and Ultra, I think a week ago, where he has the same amount of playoff wins, I think, as his dad, which is like insane to think about.
Well, doesn't he have like the highest win percentage?
Win percentage in all 4 major sports without winning a championship. So that's also a pretty wild stat as well. So this is the last thing he needs to do. He needs to get that ring. And then honestly, if he gets the ring right now, he's probably in the Hall of Fame, like, period.
Oh, with his influence for sure. And
he probably already is, but like, it puts him in.
I think he would. I think he probably will get in.
But he's only 43.
But just because like his influence and we talk about McVay assistants, how they get hired, but Shanahan's assistants have been hired almost at the same rate. And what he's done for football, I respect immensely what Kyle Shanahan's done for football. He's probably the defining coach of this era, just in terms of everyone's running Kyle Shanahan's offense, and he's still the best play caller in the NFL. But a ring here would remove any debate, like any doubt about his greatness whatsoever.
What's up, Big Al? How you doing, brother? Thanks for tuning in. He's also a member for 20 months.
Who's Big Al have?
Yeah, Big Al. Let us know who you're picking. Everybody in the chat, let us know who you're picking. Let's get to it, man. Let's start the breakdown. Do which side of the ball? Let's let you guys kind of dictate it, because you guys kind of already know what I'm going to say. I've said it in 18 different videos already, so you guys can go ahead.
All right, so can we want to go Chiefs offense, Niners defense first?
Yeah, I was actually thinking that as well.
But I'll let you go here then.
Okay.
I think this is the side of the ball that'll determine the game. I will break it down the other side of the ball later, but I feel like both of those units, the opposite units of these teams, are already established. I think these are the units of the teams that are a lot more open-ended. There's a lot more questions to be answered. How good are these units actually? I think the 49ers defense, I'm just going to say it straight up, I think it's overrated, both schematically and talent-wise. Chase Young is a huge issue. I made a joke in the Discord about like how many times he'll get pancaked in this game. The guy stinks, and I'm hoping the 49ers take his snaps down, at least on early downs, so they can establish more of an edge presence. And that kind of leads into what I think Kansas City needs to establish early on in order to gain control of this game. Isaiah Pacheco and the run blocking and the run game have to be on point in this game, because it's not a secret anymore. That's how you attack this 49ers defense. The 49ers defense against the run, I'm not going to say is completely incompetent, because they did fairly well on Aaron Jones, a lot better than Dallas did. But against Detroit, especially in the first half, it was a disaster. It was pathetic. And like it was inexcusable. But I also think to defend the 49ers, Mitch brought this up on his own preview. The Packers and the Lions both had 2 top 5 offenses leading into this game, like throughout the second half of the season. Those were 2 top 5 offenses. And we kind of brought that up on the previews, how those teams have offensive lines that can kind of just overwhelm the 49ers, especially Detroit. And I'm wondering, with the loss of Joe Thuney and the fact that Kansas City's run game didn't really do much against Baltimore last week, and that was kind of how we were saying Kansas City might be able to attack Baltimore, is the Joe Thuney loss that significant? Is that the loss that's holding this run game back? Could that be a big turning point in this game? And I think that it might be, but I also think that we've kind of forgotten throughout the Mahomes era that Andy Reid knows how to run the ball. He knows how to get creative with the run game. And I think if knowing him and looking at the last few weeks, he's going to try to establish a tempo that slows the pace of the game down, allows Kansas City to kind of control the clock and put the 49ers on their heels to start off the drive. So if I'm Kansas City, I want the ball first. I think Kansas City should try to get the ball first and try to immediately score in like a 7-minute control drive where it's like,
which is an interesting point, because both these teams defer all the time.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs should get the ball first and establish some sort of presence, because I think Kansas City's offense is just not built to come from behind against really anybody. And I know Kansas City's offense has looked better in the playoffs, but there's some context here. The Dolphins' defense was really beat up, and Kansas City's offense was good, but it wasn't anything special in that game. The Bills' defense was really beat up, not even counting the obvious injuries. Like, they had like 2 active linebackers, and they also had Sean McTerris. Like, it's just bad. And the Ravens' defense, they only really had 2 promising drives. The second half, they didn't score. They couldn't really move the ball. And so while Kansas City's offense has gotten better, I still don't think it's really that good. It's not anything that wows me. This isn't an offense that I can trust to go get me high 20s to low 30s. So if this game turns into some sort of a shootout, I have a hard time envisioning Kansas City winning, because I just don't think they have the targets. I think the 49ers have
I agree with what you just said, but it still feels weird to say that.
I know it feels weird to say because of this. It's the Chiefs, right? But the way we've seen the Chiefs play throughout the playoffs, Mahomes has been taking all the easy stuff, letting his guys throwing short passes, trying to get yak. He's not running around for 30 seconds throwing the ball 40 yards down the field to Tyreek anymore. That shit is dead.
I think the interesting correlation with playing from in front is, would he be that same quarterback if he were trailing?
That
Like,
is a question.
Are you able to play that same style if the Niners are up 17-7? Is Mahomes still going to play that way?
Play
Or
which way?
is he going to get a little
Game
bit?
manager, take
Oh,
the
no. If
the
you think
check
the
down.
Cincinnati Bengals from 2 years ago, Mahomes is showing up, you're in for
That's kind of what I'm getting to, because
but that's not going to happen, because we saw him down 10 against the Eagles last year, and he was perfect in the second half. That Mahomes is dead.
But that was an offense that had confidence in its ability to come from
I
behind and win. And
trying to reach for something there that's not going to happen. Like that Mahomes changed.
I think it's a legit question though, because this Chiefs offense has like no real explosion, like at all.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
I'm just saying,
I don't
Ultra,
think
like
Mahomes making a bunch of dumb decisions once he's down.
I'm not saying it's going to be dumb. I'm just saying he's going to be put in a situation where he's going to have to press more. And how would that change his mentality? Because he's been in spots where he's kind of been able to dictate the game via.
I guess, yeah, that's fair. But like, is there another quarterback in the world you rather have in that spot?
No, but that's leading into this conversation. It's not necessarily about Mahomes for me. It's just I just don't trust these targets. Yes, they've benched all the chum. There's no more Tony. Sky Moore isn't going to
Tony said he's gonna play, bro.
Tony is I saw a
I
meme.
really want Tony to have a big game for no
saw
reason.
a really funny meme about like coyotes showing up on the Chiefs. It was really funny. They talked about Tony or whatever, but the Chiefs receivers, like, and I think that's a big question. Like, if you're the 49ers, if I'm the 49ers, I am playing more aggressive than I ever have throughout this entire playoff run, because I feel like something that I've noticed more so from an eye test thing is I feel like defensive coordinators are going into games against the Chiefs at the start like they're playing the Chiefs from 3 years ago with Tyreek Hill. They're playing a lot softer than I would have expected. It looks like they're still fearing the deep ball. They're still fearing Mahomes running around and making some crazy stuff happen. And now that we've seen throughout this playoff run, Mahomes is completely fine with taking the easy stuff. And that's really not what this offense is anymore. They aren't going to beat you down the field. And I think the 49ers, especially with Charvarius Ward on Rashee Rice, who's the only perimeter threat the Chiefs really even have with any sort of consistency, and the Niners have an all-pro corner to guard him, I think the Niners should try to be more aggressive here, play some more man, or not even man, just bump the receivers, get physical, try to throw them off their routes a little bit. And I'm wondering if they do try to implement that kind of game plan, if they do try to focus more up on the run. I know Mitch put up a stat like the Niners, it was like them having 8 in the box or something. They're like the best run defense when they actually zone in on stopping the run and they put extra bodies there.
Yeah, shout out to Mina Kimes. That was her stat, but yeah, I used it.
Yeah, so if I'm the 49ers and now everybody knows that setting the edge is the weakness of your defense, I'm putting more guys in the box and I'm forcing the biggest weakness of this Chiefs team all year, which has been their receivers, to beat me. And that's another thing that we've been talking about. When you play a quarterback like Mahomes, when you play Tom Brady, when you play Peyton Manning, when you play a historically great quarterback, you don't try to beat the quarterback, you try to beat the players around him. And I think this is the worst offensive supporting cast Mahomes has had in his career in terms of playmakers. And the Niners are kind of uniquely built to stop Travis Kelce. They have the linebackers to do it. I don't think they really need to put extra bodies on Travis Kelce. So I think that's what the Niners should do. I think the Niners should play as aggressive as possible on defense, try to stop the run early and force Mahomes to make throws down the field on the sideline. Force MVS to make another crazy catch down the sideline like he did against Buffalo, right? Force Rashee Rice to beat Charvarius Ward. The only player that I have any sort of fear of is Travis Kelce on this offense. And I think the Niners can stop him. So the Chiefs are they're just a weird team. Like, their offense has been getting better, but I still don't think it's good. I'm leaning towards low 20s for them. But another thing that kind of concerns me is Mahomes and Reed seem to have something keyed in on this defense. Like against the 49ers, they've just played really well against the 49ers in recent years, not even just in the Super Bowl.
Just last year, yeah.
Last year, that was a way better Niner defense, too.
Like, so maybe there's something there. Like, maybe they just have something. Maybe they just something. Maybe they just know how to beat that defense.
And that's where I think, man, Steve Wilks, you got to come in here. Because that was not Steve Wilks' defense. And we know Steve Wilks is kind of the most different coordinator than Ryans or Saleh. Like, he doesn't actually come from that tree.
I believe he's the only play caller that's different from the Super Bowl in Miami 4 years ago, right?
Yeah. But he's also like a different, like basically they brought him in because they thought he was a good coach, and they basically taught him the Niner system and the Niner way, but he has like an influence from elsewhere that maybe hasn't quite shown up enough. Like, maybe with 2 weeks to prepare, he kind of puts a little bit of a stamp of his own on this game, which will be interesting to watch. But I think Durcant's right. I mean, I basically outlined that same thing. If I was a defensive coordinator, that's how I'd play it. We can't really necessarily expect, either team to game plan the way that we would want them to. I think, like, we can't expect the Chiefs to run outside zone at a high rate because that's not really what they do. Like, are they going to run gap? Like, how are they going to be successful running their gap scheme runs against the Niners? Or are they going to up their play action usage? Like, I've seen like guys like Warren Sharp say, oh, the Chiefs should run more play action. Well, yeah, but they don't. Like, you know what I mean? Like, are they, you know what I mean?
They don't.
We can't just like assume like, are the Niners going to play more man? Well, they do usually on third down, but will they on first down? You know what I mean? Like, we can't just assume they're going to do that. I think there's some easy things that the Niners can do to like just stack the box. It's not hard. You could play different coverages, just putting an extra guy in the box. It's a little bit easier, right? And I think just the goal for the Niners defensively should be is like making Mahomes hold the ball a little bit and stopping the run. That should be kind of the key. It doesn't really matter how they get there. It's just a matter of like, can we allow enough time for our pass rush to get home, or at least cause pressure for a throwaway or something? And then can we stop the run? And those are the two things I think the Niners need to do in this game defensively to have success, because otherwise, like, man, zone doesn't really matter. Zone blitz, like whatever they're going to do, it doesn't matter to me. It's just like, and I think the other thing is Kansas City's probably going to have a couple drives here where they look awesome and they're going to go down and they're going to score and it's going to be easy. But then there's also times, like even at their best this year, where they've just kind of like had lulls where they've gone 3 or 4 or 5 drives where they just punt. Like, and that's the thing, if you're the Niners, is if you get a typical offensive day, and I know that you're playing one of the better defenses you've played all year, even if you don't play some amazing defensive game, you might still win. Just if the other team if you can force a couple field goals, maybe they go for it on 4th down once, maybe you get an interception or a forced fumble. Like,
yeah.
So the Niners can kind of just get some big plays. Well, I feel like the other side of the ball, the Chiefs kind of need to win it. Like the defense needs to really go after the Niners. But when it comes to the Chiefs attacking the Niners, I think like we're probably going to see a lot of screens. We're probably going to see a lot of maybe, I don't know, because they don't really have the personnel. Like if they don't trust Hardman, and obviously Tony's not playing.
Yeah, that was actually something I was going to bring up, was
like if they're going to do end arounds and
the Niners have no response to that, but they don't have their guys in top shape.
Are they going to give it to Rice? Like
I don't know, but that's their third option for who would do that. But the two guys you don't trust right now.
Obviously, and I think a low key, like really basic thing in this game for both defenses is just tackling. Like the ability to make a check down or like a quick screen.
It's so simple, but you're right.
It's so simple, but it's true, especially against the Niners. But against the Chiefs as well, if you can put them in those 2nd and 9s instead of a 2nd and 3, and then you can, or a 3rd and 9 instead of a 3rd and 4. Like the difference in that for especially the Niners defense with just the personnel they offer, I think is substantial in the way that the Chiefs kind of have to manufacture their yards. I think you're probably going to see a lot of multi-tight end packages, 2 tight end packages from the Chiefs, 3 tight end packages from the Chiefs. I do know that the Niners are weakest when they face 11 personnel runs, which is 3 receivers, but I would expect the Chiefs to try to kind of like what the Lions tried to do, try to get bigger on the field and see how the Niners at least respond to that, which is where I'm kind of like, just intrigued to see how Wilks and the staff has gone about approaching this Chiefs offense and like what they want to take away and how they want to do it. Are they just going to play wide 9 like they have and just like they've been getting gashed? But is that just because the Lions have a really uniquely good running game that can run all these different runs with these 2 awesome running backs and the really great play calling, and then in the second half they kind of got it together? Or was it like what is it exactly? Is it the personnel? Is it the front? Like, so there's a lot of like questions I have about the Niners, but I also kind of have confidence in the Niners because like I think this is the weakest O-line they've played in the playoffs. I think this is the weakest receiving core they've played in the playoffs. Although this is the best tight end and probably, I don't even know if I'd say it's the best scheme, to be honest. I think it's in line, but the best quarterback for sure operating the scheme. But there's maybe weaknesses on the Chiefs that they couldn't take advantage of on the other teams. So I'm just kind of, it feels to me when I watch the Chiefs that almost a lot of their offense, it feels very manufactured. It feels very like smoke and mirrors. Like some big plays against the Bills off of play action early to Kelsey finding voids in the zone. And that's a key point that Warner has been talking about in press conferences I've been listening to, is like the ability to match Kelsey on those plays, like not taking your vision off of Kelsey and putting it on Mahomes, but just keeping your eyes on Kelsey because he's not really running a route. Like he's just kind of finding a spot to like sit in the zone and trying to take that away from him. And so there's so many different like little things in the game plan I'm looking forward to watching. But I think for the Niners, it really for both comes down to the running the ball and the quick passes and the inability or the ability to do so. Like, because I think if the Niners are able to slow down the running game, able to tackle and make those plays on the short passes, and are forcing the Chiefs to make them a vertical team, as much as we've seen Mahomes is a great deep passer, MVS may come up with 1 or 2 of them, but is he going to come up with 3 or 5 or 6 of them? Probably not. Alter, do you want to add anything to this conversation? It's just,
so
to me, it's the guessing game of trying to figure out, well, this team should do this because they struggle with this, but that's not actually what they do. It's like, bro, you're blowing my mind up. You know what I mean?
Since we're at the end of the year, we can't expect teams to just divert from their tendencies. Like this is what these
that's
teams
why I
are.
said I think I don't
do.
remember who was last week or the week before when I said about the Niner defense to Mitch. It's just like they are who they are at this point, I feel like. But
and I think you've also been, and they've been criticized, and rightfully so. And Steve Wilks has gone after them. Shanahan's got after them. Their leaders have gone after them.
Questions.
Like unacceptable effort. Like, we've got to play better. And a lot of their answers is like, we've got to play harder. And
getting embarrassed publicly.
And maybe they'll respond, and maybe they'll just have a different energy. And
that's
who knows? Like, fuck, they've got great players. Like, it's kind of weird to watch, but at the same time, it's correlated with they've played the best offenses. Like, they've played the Ravens, they've played the Packers, they played the Lions, they played, when they had injuries, they played kind of a very strange but effective Cardinal running game that took advantage of them not having their D tackles. And like,
there's explanations for all of it, for sure.
Yeah. It's like, how does that match up with the Super Bowl and what the Chiefs have done? I don't really know, but
yeah. I will say you did bring up a point. I think it was in the lead up to the Chiefs Bills preview where you said the Chiefs run game, it seemed like whenever they play a bad run defense, they go off, but whenever they play average run defenses or better, they've not. And I actually looked into that. So against teams that are bottom 10 in EPA per rush allowed. So keep in mind, this would be the Chiefs have played 5 teams Bills twice, Packers, Bengals, and Eagles. In those games, on average, the Chiefs have ran the ball for 24 carries for 135 yards. That's 5.7 yards per carry. So keeping that in mind, Bills were 23rd, Packers 24th, Bengals 25th, Eagles were 30th. The 49ers ranked 27th in EPA per rush allowed. So there is an argument to be had that against weak run defense, which I think the 49ers fit into that category, at least from a statistical perspective, the Chiefs have kind of gone off in the run game. Now, Joe Thuney being out, that might negate that, right? Because even though the 49ers, they're one of the only 3 teams to give up like a positive EPA per play on runs up the middle, Joe Thuney, that's a big loss. And Baltimore, while their run defense wasn't their strength, it was a lot better than San Francisco's, but still, Algrady clearly was not at his best in that game. Like, I've seen him in the past as a backup play better than
He's not a bad player, but like they're
solid backup, but he's like they're going off from
somebody commented on one of my videos like he would start on any team. I'm like, what? No.
Nick Algrady, he's not starting up, but yeah, the Chiefs were, I feel like their run blocking offensive line also in just the regular season, they were 17th in PFF grade. So like, I feel like the loss of the Jet game, like the Jet touch game, that kind of the motion that's hurting them in this matchup a little bit. Pacheco's really strong and powerful, and he's good after contact, but he's not at his best when he's having to run side to side, and that's what confuses the Niners the most.
Yeah, they seem to really struggle with what we've seen is crack toss and outside zone, and it feels like
there was a play against the Lions where the Lions ran for a 3rd and 12 and got it.
Yeah, that was embarrassing.
Humiliating for a defense. But the Chiefs haven't been, that's not where the Chiefs run game necessarily excels. The Chiefs can, like the Niners do allow yards up the middle, but I don't think that's their fatal flaw. So that's interesting. And Joe Thuney being out is certainly an interesting part of there. I'm more interested, how much pressure do you guys think the Niners are going to get? Because I think they will get a lot. Just looking at like pass rushing productivity, Bosa was 7th. Chase Young was 25th. The Chiefs tackles, Juwan Taylor was 35th in pass blocking efficiency. Donovan Smith was 41st, which neither of those are great.
I feel
like the Niners are going to get a lot of pressure, but I'm worried about if they're actually going to get him to the ground.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
At getting rid of the ball and extending plays and scrambling. He did that in the first Niners Super Bowl really well too. And he's only become a smarter player since then.
Well, so that's a tough one to answer, like if he's going to get sacked or not. Like I will say, just from a sacking standpoint, I mean, Armstead is like a super long athlete. He's kind of like good at just wrapping people up. Bosa's a sack specialist. Hargrave is a sack specialist. And
these guys are best as pass rushers. That's
just from like a physical standpoint, Bosa and Young are probably the 2 most athletic edge players they've played so far in the playoffs. Just like, I don't know, but really, is it about the sack or is it about just getting pressure? If you can just force a third down stop.
And Mahomes was 19th in the regular season in passer rating under pressure, which is not good. So
even if it's just him throwing it away, you'll take that stop.
Yeah, you're right.
But to me, it's more about can they get them in those situations where the Niners can kind of really rush?
Yeah, can they be? How often are they going to be in?
First down will be very important.
That's why, and I was going to get to this. I think early downs are going to be huge in this game. I'll get to Kelsey in a second, but like if we're just going through like the how these teams are. So the 49ers are slightly better than the Chiefs defensively versus offensively on early downs in EPA per play. They're 12th. Chiefs are 13th offensively, but the Chiefs are a lot better on 3rd and 4th down. The Chiefs are 6th in success rate on 3rd and 4th down. The 49ers are 25th in terms of what they're allowing on 3rd and 4th down. So that tells me that the Niners are probably a little better on 1st and 2nd down, but the Chiefs do have a significant 3rd and 4th down edge, which concerns me a little bit if I'm a 49er fan. But I'll also counterpoint with this. The Niners, on average, got a lot better starting field position than the Chiefs, which in a game like this is going to be a close game. All of us think that, I think. So that could be huge, right? Because the field position was so big last year in that Chiefs-Eagles game. The Tony punt return basically, you can argue, decided the game. And if the 49ers have been the better team at that this year, so that concerns me if I'm a Chief fan. And one final thing, Kelsey, It's weird because the Niners, the two teams that are designed to take away Kelsey the best, I feel like, are the 49ers and the Ravens for obvious reasons. But the Ravens didn't. And statistically, the Niners have been a little better against the middle of the field, against tight ends than the Ravens. But that's still weird. It still feels like, I don't know if Durcant feels like this or not, but Kelsey is still, I feel like, going to get his. And you just can't let him.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
he is.
He'll get his, but I mean, it's just a matter of when it is.
Yeah.
Like, is it a third or fourth down? Is it a touchdown? Is it a screen on first down for like 6 yards? Like, what is the touch you're getting here? And then at the same time, I also feel like that's why I was very critical. I was watching the AFC Championship, and I don't know what I said on commentary. I was kind of looking at the Ravens defense, like, are they really going to play like this? Like,
I don't think they were even playing that badly, though. I just feel like he was making play. Like the
not
one
really. It was just a matter of kind of being soft. Like,
they were.
I think Kelsey was just being.
Did you see the fourth down play? Like, what are you gonna do there?
Yeah, and that's also to the point, I think, of like maybe too much has been made of those two drives, because after all, they were only two drives.
A argument for that.
Like, it wasn't sustainable
after that, and they moved the ball only on that final drive with the MVS catch.
So yeah, the Niners are going to give up some of those crazy plays. It's going to happen. Like,
now, but Chiefs fans will also counter and say the Ravens defense is a lot better than the Niners, which is not untrue, right? So, and then the final thing, again, like you guys said, man versus zone. Chiefs are 21st in passer rating against man coverage, 10th against zone coverage. The 49ers play the 5th least man coverage this season. Steve, I feel like on paper, the 49ers defensively have a slight edge in terms of this matchup with the pressure that they can generate, and because of the Chiefs' offensive line situation.
Yeah.
So, like, from a personnel's perspective, and because I do think personnel-wise, they're dedicated to slow down Kelsey. And I don't think the Chiefs receivers.
I'm actually genuinely shocked you're saying this right now.
No, but this is genuinely how I feel. I feel like the Chiefs score in the high 20s, low 30s. It's going to be because Andy Reid's working Steve Wilkes like he did John.
Yeah.
And that's
I honestly I agree with that. I think that's what I fear as someone that's
invested in the Niners, right?
Not only wants the Niners to win, but also like pick them, and then has some bets on in although I have not bet the side yet, but like I have some bets correlated with them winning. So yeah, that's the biggest worry if you're a Niners fan, in my opinion, is like, how does this game plan look? And I especially want to know how it looks early. I'm going to have an idea if the Niners are going to win or not within the first quarter.
Here's one thing I'll say, though, Mitch, real quickly, that made me feel better as a Niners backer. So I read this in the DVOA preview on the Super Bowl. So including the playoffs, but not including Week 18, per DVOA, San Francisco was 17th in the first 3 quarters of games defensively in DVOA, and then in the fourth quarter, they're really best defense.
They're really good in the fourth quarter.
That could be big. Like, if the Niners' fourth quarter defense steps up, like it did, to be fair, even in the bad playoff games against Green Bay and the Detroit game, the Detroit defensive second half performance was a little overrated, but they didn't give up many points, which is, I think,
they made the key stops when they needed to, and they forced a turnover.
Even though part of it was the Lions kind of self-destructing on a couple of those, but yes, they made the key stops when they had to, and they got the turnover. So that's crucial.
And just to balance this out, for the Chiefs, what do you think they need to do to win this game offensively? Like,
I just think it's going to have to be run the ball effectively with consistency, stay in third and manageable, and work the quick game as much as possible. Try to isolate. Try to take advantage of when the Niners are playing zone, have Mahomes. The Niners haven't been great with quarterback scrambles either. So maybe Mahomes makes a couple of plays there. He's done it in the Super Bowls. So I think those are going to be crucial.
Don't forget to dial up the play action.
Oh yeah, play action for sure. But yeah, like in just a pure drop back sense, I don't know how much success the Chiefs can really have in this game.
Yeah.
Just because of the state their offensive line is in. I'll say this.
That's the most under talked about point in the entire Super Bowl, by the way, and it's fucking insane to me. The fact that the Chiefs lost a Super Bowl because of the line of scrimmage, apparently, right? Against the Bucs. But nobody's really talking about the fact that Joe Thuney's not playing and Charles Omenihu is not playing. Like,
Yeah.
Does that not matter? Like, nobody talks about
I
that.
do think that Andy Reid's definitely learned a lot from that Bucs Super Bowl on the offensive side. But yeah, that's still like there's only so much you can learn. The personnel is still the personnel, and the Niners defensive line on paper has a significant advantage, in my opinion, over the Chiefs offense.
And in a weird way, we don't really know how the Chiefs will fare in that facet because they played Miami with walk-on street free agents at edge.
Miami and Buffalo were dead defenses, and
The Bills were injured, and then really Baltimore were playing in a horrible game script. And then the Ravens kind of figured it out in the second half. Yeah. But like the Chiefs O-line looked the best it's looked, in my opinion, in like that first half of the Ravens game. But at the same time, like the Ravens edge rushers are like Jadeveon Clowney, Kyle Van Noy.
This could literally determine the Super Bowl. If the 49ers edge rushers play up to their name and past performance instead of how they've played in recent weeks, like their defensive line in particular, outside of Bosa, that could literally determine the game. If Hargrave and Chase Young and Armstead step up, the 49ers have a very good chance of winning the game. If they play like they did against Detroit and mostly against Green Bay, they will probably end up losing the game. So it could be as simple as that on that side of the ball.
Yeah, I agree. Anything else, Durcant, or any other talking points you guys want to raise here?
Yeah, well, those are two elite offensive lines, especially Detroit. And I think for the Chiefs to win this game on the offensive side of the ball, and mostly depends on their defense. Like, if their defense is playing the way that they did against Baltimore, then Kansas City should be able to implement a similar game plan that they did against Baltimore to win the game. They might only have to score low to mid 20s to win this game, like 26, which was what they scored against us, I think.
I will say the Chiefs playing from a lead are a very scary team because they know so well how to kill clock with quick passes, short passes, high percentage passes, and then the runs with Pacheco, who it feels like at times he can just get stronger as the game goes on. So that's a little scary if you're a Niner fan. But
and I'll say this, if the Chiefs defense isn't doing their part, if they're finally kind of underperforming and this game ends up being a shootout, not even like 35-30, it could be like 27-24. That was the Bills game. Then I think for the Chiefs offense to overcome that, I think we need to see a historic Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid performance where people in the media are talking about Mahomes is the best quarterback they've ever seen. Travis Kelce is the greatest tight end ever. Ultra just said Andy Reid's a top 5 coach of all time. Well, if this
didn't actually say that. I said he's arguably that.
If this game ends up being a shootout, then I think those guys are going to maybe have to have one of, if not the, Mahomes has to match his best performances ever. He needs to play like how he did.
He needs to have his best Super Bowl of all time.
Yeah, he needs to play like how he did
in
Buffalo a few years ago.
Which is a hard ask, but it's a worst.
Mahomes needs to have a legendary Super Bowl performance, and it is Mahomes, so it could happen. But the question is, like, will it happen? Like, are you willing to bet on that? Have we seen that this year, even in these playoffs?
The Bills game was pretty awesome, but
the
Miami game was just kind of like a dull game, and the Baltimore game was
just a fucking joke.
But then like, Chiefs fans are going to say, well, we're all talking about the Baltimore game. Like, Baltimore has a much better defense than the 49ers.
But that's also why, like, that's another thing. I think the Chiefs have more win conditions than some people may think. Like, I don't think every scenario has to be Mahomes has this legendary all-time performance.
No, we don't. No,
without one. Well, with one. So
we're just. I think all Ultra was Ultra. I don't know, Durcant. You got into it, but like, all we were really saying is if they're playing from behind, it's going to be hard. Unless
it's going to be hard. Now, I'm just saying that like this game is going to be dictated by the Chiefs' defense, whether or not they win.
And
or the Niners' offense
into the matchup of the game.
That's a good transition.
Yes, that's a pretty cool transition. I'm proud of myself.
The Chiefs' top 3 defense. The Chiefs' defense has been the story of the playoffs. I would argue the 49ers' offense might have been the story of the regular season. I guess I'll take this one. I'm so excited for this matchup. I am so excited for Kyle Shanahan versus Steve Spagnuolo. And I'll just get to it. I'll get through the elephant in the room, you guys. The 49ers have the best run game in the NFL. The Chiefs have a bottom 5 run defense in the NFL. And this is according to ePaper Rush. That's where the game is going to be won and lost in a very high likelihood. Like, can the Chiefs stop the run on early downs? Because if they can't, they're not going to win. I'm just going to say it right now, Chiefs fans. And the 49ers, first in ePaper Rush, first in rushing success rate on early downs. The Chiefs, 26th and 19th, respectively. Like, if it's hard. And it's extra hard because the 49ers are 7th in short yardage situations, and the Chiefs are dead last in short yardage situations. Dead last in the NFL defensively. So if the Niners are in 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2 all game, they're going to get it more often than they're not going to get it, if not every time they're in that situation. So, and I get Kyle is not typically aggressive when it comes to 4th downs, but I think there's a high chance he's not going to have to be. And the Chiefs, we've seen, like, they struggled against Buffalo and Green Bay late in the season. Those are 2 different run games. One specialized with outside perimeter runs. One specializes with powerful runs up the middle, especially with the quarterback. The Niners can do both. Christian McCaffrey is a powerful, strong runner, but he's also a fast runner. He's elusive. And Deebo Samuel off the edge, that guy can break it for 70 at any point in any game. And they got up on Baltimore early, so I guess that kind of got taken away from Baltimore. But again, Baltimore also had the worst offensive game plan any of us have ever seen in a football game before in that game. And there's a strong chance that if we replayed that game, it goes a lot differently for the Chiefs defense in this perspective. And when Baltimore did run it, like, they did have a lot of success at times. I think getting the lead would be extremely helpful to the Niners. It would be helpful to both teams because I think both teams would play more comfortably with a lead. And if we only look, and here this is fascinating. If we only look at plays where the opposing offense had the lead, the Chiefs, from a DVOA perspective, were the worst defense in the NFL against the run. So, like, if the Niners, yes, this was in the DVOA preview.
Wow.
I suggest go reading it. The Chiefs were the worst defense against the run when playing from behind in the NFL this year. So the 49ers, there's a chance that they can just stretch the lead if they do get a lead with the run. And, you know, the Chiefs do play light box. Like, they play heavy boxes more frequently. Again, in light boxes, they're 28th in yards per carry. They're dead last in ePaper Rush and success rate. San Francisco's dominant against all of those facets against light boxes. I think they're going to have to gear up for the run, and I think that'll negate what they can actually do in pass rush and coverage. The 49ers run game, that might literally determine the game. The 49ers being that dominant of a run team against the Chiefs run defense that has been the one chink in the armor of what's otherwise been an excellent defense all year. Do you guys want to? I'll let you guys go here before we get to the Niner pass offense versus the Chiefs.
Oh yeah, we've got a lot to discuss here. There's a lot of things to discuss.
I had a lot of statistics on that. So
the way I feel like they're going to match up, so I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel from the Niners. So
I agree, yeah.
So you're going to have did I say whatever? 2 backs, tight end, 2 receivers, and then you're going to have the 2 tight end formations as well. So you're going to have Warner out there.
Legend.
You're going to have Kittle out there as well. Or the thing is with the Niners is, like, Juszczyk, I don't really know what to classify him as.
He could be a running back or a tight end.
Yeah,
he's a hybrid player.
You want him to be.
So like literally they could come out in like a 2-back formation, and then they can split into like a 2 tight end formation, which is kind of fascinating. But typically the Chiefs have matched up with base defense in those looks, which is typically for them 4 linebackers, and then they'll have their normal defensive line. So I expect like Tranquil to be one of their edge players, and then they'll probably bring Chanel in as well, and they can kind of use him as like a middle linebacker or an edge player. But the fascination for me with that is like,
with like his athleticism.
huh?
Do you think Bolton will get any run as like an edge hybrid? Just because
I don't think so. I think he's strictly a middle linebacker for them. I think him and Gay will probably be the middle linebackers.
Okay.
So I think from there, the fascination comes, first of all, how does not having Omenihu impact the left side of your line? Because he typically is over there. And I don't know if you guys heard of a guy named Trent Williams. He's on that side. The Niners are the best team running to the left.
Running to the left behind Trent Williams.
Yeah.
It's like, other than the tush push, it's the most guaranteed thing in the NFL.
It's a glitch. So the Chiefs will have to kind of overplay that. That's going to be interesting to see. And then all the different motions and things of how Kyle is going to try to find different mismatches as well as angles in the running game is something to watch just from like an eyes perspective. Like when you're watching the game, just see how kind of Kyle's motioning people, moving them around in the pass and the run game to try to find different ways to angle them off and things like that. And then Spags, will he kind of be aggressive and send corner blitzes because the Niners like to play condensed? Will the Niners like to play condensed with their receivers, or will they play more spread out? That's another thing to watch. That will impact the pass and the run game. And then I just think where the Niners are kind of known, and Ultra knows this, is like Shanahan may not be as play action oriented as he's been in the past. But I think the difficulty is if you're the Chiefs and you're overplaying the run and you know you have to stop the run, and we know they're going to try to do that, and then Purdy pulls it for a play action.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are also really bad
against play action. Up, and there's George Kittle in the middle of the field.
Yeah, you've got the three levels, right? And you've got Ayuk running across, and you've got, I don't know, CMC or Juszczyk in the flat, and you've got Kittle, and it's just going to be so hard, I think, for the Chiefs to consistently figure out how to stop this offense because they're so much given up in the running game with this matchup. Like, they have to sell out, in my opinion, to stop the run. They're going to have to leave their corners on islands, which could work for them. But also, like, do you really want to have any corner in the league playing Ayuk, like, by himself?
I will say, if there's anybody, L'Jarius.
Do you really want to have, like, any linebacker covering George Kittle? You know what I mean? Like, so that's going to be the interesting thing is, like, how does Spags play heavy in the box based on personnel? How does Kyle call the game based on that? How does Spags then decide when to run like two high coverages and kind of like, okay, Kyle, it's 2nd and 6. You're going to pass. Like, are you going to run it or are you going to pass? Like, are you going to still run it here or are you going to, you know what I mean? So like, there's so much of that tendency that I want to see early. And this is a little bit why I think the Chiefs have the edge early in the game, is because I think Spags can kind of just come out and say, we're going to attack you with a multitude of things. And maybe I'm underestimating what Kyle's going to bring here early in the game to attack the Chiefs. And maybe the answer is just as easy as run stretch to the left. I don't know. Run outside zone to the left. I don't know. But like, maybe Spags and the Chiefs catch them off guard early, and then Kyle's like, okay, they're doing this, and then we'll figure it out later, and then they gash them in the third, and then that's how it goes. But that could also happen. And then, you know, and then you got Debo. Like, this is the last game of the year. So you have Debo Samuel not worried about getting him injured. He's had 2 weeks of rest. CMC's running back 1, but guess who running back 2 is? It ain't Elijah Mitchell. It's Debo Samuel.
Mason.
Right? It's not Jordan Mason. Like, Debo's going to be getting the ball probably 5 or 6 times running. And I'm fascinated to see if they put him in the backfield or McCaffrey at receiver. We know you're going to see that, and then how they work each other off of that. And if Debo like getting guarded by a linebacker,
I think Kyle's game
crazy.
Plan, I'm sure Ayuk and Kittle have some impact, but I think it'll be centered around the guy that was his most valuable player 2 years ago that almost got into a Super Bowl, and the guy that might have been the best player in the NFL this year, McCaffrey.
Yeah. The way I see it in my mind early from a Niner perspective is I think it will be a lot of running. I think it will be a lot of screen to Debo or like quick stuff just to get Purdy settled. Maybe McCaffrey on like swing passes, things like that. And then maybe like a little play action, but I
think they'll start to let Purdy get into the game, get himself integrated, and then they'll gradually trust him a little more as the Chiefs kind of gear up to stop the run as the Niners are doing it.
I'm also interested to see how they utilize like that motion with McCaffrey to make those like empty formations as well.
I will say in Kansas City's defense, and durcant can kind of get in here too because I'm about to bring in Miami.
Yeah.
Miami loves to motion as much as San Francisco does, even more so. And Kansas City handled that very well in both games. So that they do have experience with this kind of offense, but I do think the 49ers bring more challenges and they have less holes than Miami's offense.
I think they also bring a lot more power.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
All finesse.
They bring a lot of the qualities Miami's run game faced Kansas City with, but with a lot of the qualities Buffalo also had. So it's a very tough matchup.
Okay, so I wanted to kind of bring up the 49ers against good defenses because I feel like
I was actually going to get to that too.
I feel like that's something that we've talked about on this show before that we're kind of forgetting a little bit here is that the 49ers, we've seen kind of their floor offensively, and it seems like every time we've seen that floor, it's come against top defenses. Against both the Browns and the Ravens, their offense.
Brock Purdy's 2 horrible games of the year. Like just
and that's what I was actually about to get into. I feel like the way to beat the Niners offense, because no one can actually beat the Niners offense. I think they're too talented. They're too well coached. I think the way to beat the 49ers offense is to kind of let them beat themselves and let Shanahan get a little bit too up into his own head. Because I feel like there's too many times in these big games, in these big moments, and every time the Niners have lost or almost lost, like they got dangerously close to losing to the Packers, for example, I feel like it's because Shanahan just doesn't run it enough.
Yeah,
it's not that
Don't forget about the rain, guys.
It's not even just that that he's not running.
The Browns
the ball.
game was in the rain.
He runs the ball a fair. He runs the ball a fair.
They
amount.
sliced the Ravens. They just turned it over.
He runs the ball a fair amount. He did against the Ravens, right? And there was success. But it was almost like every time he would just stop for like, let's say 3 plays, and it was just super detrimental.
You're
and
right.
you have 3 plays to get this first down. You can run the ball when Christian McCaffrey is getting you 6 yards per carry. And if I'm Kyle Shanahan going into this game, and I saw the way that the Bills did it, where it felt like in that Buffalo game, like we were talking about how fast the third quarter felt like it went by because they were just running the ball for 4, 5, 6, 8 yards per carry. And it seemed like it's just these steady runs, second and shorts, and the Chiefs just had no answer regardless of what they did. And if I'm Kyle Shanahan and I'm the 49ers, I am realizing that it doesn't really matter what Spags does. It doesn't really matter what the Chiefs do. They do not have the personnel to stop the run. They do not have an answer for the best offensive lineman in football in Trent Williams. They do not have an answer for Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey runs hard. He is going to get you extra yards. He's not going to go down to the first hit. So that is my game plan, because I think the Chiefs, for them to stop the 49ers the way that these other defenses I mentioned did, I think they need to stop the 49ers from moving horizontal and force them to beat them vertically. I think that the Chiefs linebackers are the unsung heroes of this game. I think their linebacker play and their play over the middle of the field is going to win or lose them this game on defense. Can they stop George Kittle? Can they handle Christian McCaffrey? Can they force the Niners to beat them on the perimeter and clog the middle of the field? Because that is where Kansas City is at their best. And as good as Brandon Ayuk is, and as great as the Niners receivers are, the Chiefs corners are just as good, if not better. They have the best man-to-man corners in the league. And I think that's how Spags needs to try to play it. I think he needs to try to zone in on the run. He needs to try to take away George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey in the passing game. And he needs to try to force Jennings or Debo man-to-man on Trent McDuffie to beat them.
It's got to be a vertical game for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think – and if I'm the Chiefs, I'm looking at past game plans. Every time the 49ers have lost, it has been because their passing game, they've been forced to drop back pass, and they weren't able to do it. Their offensive line in those type of situations, it's just not that good. Outside of Trent Williams, their offensive line just isn't that good. And every time they've lost, Mitch brought this up after the Ravens game, it's been because of Brock Purdy. And I love Brock Purdy. I'm one of his biggest supporters. I think Brock Purdy is a good quarterback. I think Brock Purdy proved himself last week. And, I think there's a good chance he shows up in this game. But to beat the 49ers, you need to force Brock Purdy to beat you. Because at the end of the day, I don't think anyone else can really lose this game except for him on that offense. He's
One question I have is, do we think the Chiefs will get consistent pressure without blitzing?
Well, I was going to get into that,
brought back passing situations. That's actually what I was about to get into.
Because I'm honestly not sure.
I think Karlaftis needs to show up in this game.
Yeah.
They're banged up on the other side, and because they have Trent Williams, even if they weren't banged up on the other side, they could divert more attention there. But I also think Chris Jones needs to have a monster game. He did it in the Super Bowl against the 49ers the first time. Chris Jones tends to have at least one game in the playoffs where he just
against the Bengals last year.
Yeah, he just has one of those games where he just goes berserk. He is one of those type of game-changing defensive players, and I think for Kansas City to win this game, he's probably going to have to do that. So, I think the big question is, are the Chiefs linebackers fast enough, athletic enough, and smart enough to take away the first reads and to match up with the Niners over the middle? Can Chris Jones
stop the run?
Yeah. Can Chris Jones have a monster performance every time they're forced to pass? And can the Chiefs force the 49ers to pass? Because if I'm the 49ers,
it's going to be the key to the game, in my opinion.
If I'm the 49ers, I have zero respect for the Chiefs' run defense. None. I am running the ball.
Like if I were Kyle Shanahan, I would enter this game with the exact same mindset I entered the 2019 NFC Championship game with.
Yeah,
we're gonna run at you, and we're gonna make you consistently stop it before we do anything else. I would make Brock Purdy the best give Brock Purdy the best seat in the house to the Super Bowl. Hey, Brock, just watch us win a Super Bowl. And it's not like Brock Purdy.
And I think that's why I opened this kind of segment with what I said. I feel like every time the 49ers have been stifled on offense, it's not only because Purdy hasn't played well, but also because Kyle Shanahan just doesn't seem to want to run the ball 25 times a game.
And that's the one thing that if I'm a Niner fan, I go back to that Baltimore game and about how we were running at will against the Ravens and we just didn't do it for whatever reason.
It's almost like he has so much trust in Brock Purdy, and I know that's a good thing, but it's almost like he trusts him. He trusts him like Reed would trust Mahomes.
Yeah, I feel like Kyle felt so hamstrung by Jimmy that he forgot what it was like to have a quarterback that he could trust, and so now he sometimes just lets Brock do a little too much.
And Brock Purdy.
I think to go on the point of like the Chiefs getting stops, I think they're going to need to get stops by, and this is going to result in gashing runs, but they're also going to have to take chances in the run game and try to blitz the run game, and maybe they'll get a stop for no gain or a loss or a yard gain, but sometimes they're going to give up 15-yard carry, but there might be a loss of 1, make it 2nd and 11. Maybe on 2nd and 11, they get a tipped ball by Chris Jones, or the Niners throw a quick pass and it gets stopped by a nice tackle or something. And then you can get to 3rd down, and then you can get to exotic looks.
That is something that troubled the 49ers was tip balls against the Ravens. I think 2 or 3 of Purdy's balls.
Tip balls. Purdy does have issues with tip balls.
Do a similar thing because they have bigger defensive linemen.
So I think the key for the Niners on offense is 1st down, just as it is for the Chiefs. I think I have more faith in the Niners offense to find answers in a variety of ways than I do the Chiefs offense. I also have more faith in them to come from behind because they're the most explosive offense in the NFL. But I think if they're getting successful yards, like let's call it even 3 to 4 yards on 1st down consistently, I think they're going to move the ball and score 27, 30 points.
And the other thing that I would say is like, I don't think any team, the only team that has like shut the 49ers down from like a yards per play perspective this year was the Browns. I think they averaged 5 yards per play in every other game this year. But you can play them in the red zone and you can just let them move between the 20s and then hold there. Now, they've been very good in the red zone, but it's also like Durcant said, it was turnovers, right? That's been killing them in their losses. You look at the Cincinnati game. Purdy, I thought, actually played a pretty good game for most of it, but he had those 2 crucial picks. Same with the Minnesota game. The Baltimore game, he was a total disaster. And then even the Green Bay game, he didn't have any turnovers, but he was trying to throw 2 or 3 interceptions. Like, you got to clog the middle, make the Niners beat you on the perimeter, like on the long horizontal hashes. And I that's what the Chiefs have to do. And only a few teams have done it this year.
And Ultra, to kind of add to that, I think that's kind of a misconception, is that in reality, Brock Purdy throws it down the field more than pretty much anyone. He is a risk taker.
He's not a game manager at all.
He's not a game manager. He is going to throw the ball down
the field. He tries to make plays a little too much.
I'm just trying to put kind of like you guys' analysis is like together. Like you, Mitch, we both agree the Chiefs need to take risks on defense in order to create negative plays, in order to get San Francisco out of their comfort zone. But at the same time, that's going to basically end up being on play actions, right? That's going to put Snead one-on-one on Ayuk. That's going to get Debo one-on-one on McDuffie and Watson on Jennings. So at the end of the day, I think this game might, again, come down to the Niners receivers against the Chiefs' secondary.
And that's going to be a hell of a matchup.
That's going to be a great matchup. And I think that is where Kansas City wants to try to win this game defensively, because their corners just have been outstanding, and they've been really the best part of their whole team all year.
And one thing, we bring up play action. The Chiefs this year against play action, 19th in yards per attempt allowed, 21st in e-paper play allowed, 32nd in success rate allowed. Brock Purdy, highest rated passer on play action this year. So that can have some success if you're Kyle Shanahan. And like, play action has worked against the Chiefs this year. And the 49ers do play action. They don't do it as much, but they do it still as well as anybody in the NFL.
Blitzing too, against the blitz. Obviously,
they're great against the blitz.
Their first EPA against the blitz.
Yeah. So how do they blitz them? How does Spags? He's gonna blitz when he blitzes.
Your Amenahu point. Like, is he?
He's huge.
Well, that's true.
I think not everyone does, obviously.
I'm also interested if you're a 49er fan, and if they lose this game because the Chiefs are getting pressure without blitzing, you're like, damn, man, that offensive line other than Trent Williams really didn't develop like we needed it to for the end.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think if
the Niners had a better offensive line, I'd feel better about that actually happening.
I also think the Chiefs' safety,
especially in pass protection, like run blocking, they're good, but
like I think their safeties are going to play a huge role against George Kittle or even Christian McCaffrey out the backfield, or maybe Brock Purdy spying Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy made a lot of big plays with his legs against the Lions. That's kind of something that's opened up.
I mean, I'm not going to compare Brock Purdy to Josh Allen or Lamar, but they did give up plays to both of those guys. Lamar didn't actually run enough in that game.
Lamar, I don't know what he's on.
Another disaster by the Ravens. I won't even address it. Yeah. But yeah, the Chiefs were first in DVOA against running backs in the passing game this year. So this could be a McCaffrey receiver game, like an old 20.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I mean, and that's the thing with that motion, right?
The motion.
Like, yeah,
and Miami doesn't have somebody out of the backfield that can catch it. Nobody really does.
No.
Well, they can come out. Let's say they can come out in like 11 personnel, and then they can have McCaffrey, which is 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, and then they can motion McCaffrey out, and it becomes empty. But he's not on the line. He's like beside the court. He's like over there somewhere, and so you can kind of find your matchups. You can see what the coverage is. You can dictate the coverage. And you can at least get a release for McCaffrey out of the backfield that way, instead of him having to, stay in for a blitz or something, right? Yeah. So he's a quick release option from there in that regard. And that's where I'm intrigued to see if is Spags blitzes effective, or do they backfire? And then typically it feels like he's been playing a lot of, which is tricky. Not a lot of teams do this, but a lot of actual too high with blitzes. So it doesn't tend to give up a lot of explosive plays. But the one tricky part I think about that, if you're the Chiefs, is Well, if there's like a shallow to Debo or something and he just catches it and breaks a tackle, he could just be like,
that
gone.
could be 15 yards or more.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna break the first one. You got to get him down the second or third.
Yeah.
One. Like, it's just that's how it is. I want to ask you guys this. Brock Purdy's a fascinating player entering this for obvious reasons, but I feel
have faith in Brock Purdy. Like, if the question is, do I think if Purdy gets the ball at the end,
that's not even what I was gonna ask. But how do we think he's played in the playoffs? Because I look at it as Brock Purdy in the regular season, since he became the starter, has been dominant from a statistical perspective and dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's had amazing regular season games.
I think he's played
4 career playoff games. He's only really been really good in one of them, and that was the Seattle game last year. His last 3 playoff games have been kind of up and down, hit or miss. One drive he's good, one drive he's not good.
The Packers game he was awful.
He was awful against Green Bay. He was bad in the first half against Detroit. The Dallas game last year was hit and miss. Like, I feel like playoff Brock Purdy has not been the dominant world destroyer that regular season Brock Purdy has been. And I don't know why that is, but how do we feel about that?
I would say he's been inconsistently iconic.
I think that's a fair definition.
The Dallas game, like, that was just kind of.
I was there.
That was a good defense. It was a defensive game.
We're talking about last year's division.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
I wasn't there.
This year against the Packers
too.
was terrible, but I guess Brock Purdy in the rain is just.
He was real. I thought he was mostly really good against Detroit.
Yeah, I thought
the interception was
he was
bad.
really good. He was really good. You know what it was, actually? I thought he was very mediocre, and then the Ayuk play happened. And after that, I thought he was amazing.
He kind of got confident.
He made a lot of plays, though. He made a lot of outside of structure
plays.
He made plays getting hit, throwing the ball. He made plays scrambling. He made accurate dimes in the red zone. I thought he actually played really well in that game.
Alex Anzalone in the first half to give the Detroit points.
That interception was bad, but I said otherwise. I thought he played really well.
And I think this actually kind of goes hand in hand.
He has been a little bit he's been very aggressive to the point of almost very risky, with the ball, the Green Bay
at times, yeah.
Yeah, Brock
Purdy, the Chiefs, I feel like that'll be punished more than it was in the last 2 rounds.
Brock Purdy is, I'm putting this in quotations, I don't know why people call him a game manager, but he's a game manager that can lose you a game.
He's not a game manager.
What?
What
does he do when he wins?
He's a risk. He's a risk taker.
Brock Purdy
he's a gunslinger.
You would think, people, the way everybody foresees the way that this game should go down, we're all thinking Brock Purdy. If the Niners win, Brock Purdy probably won't have to do much, but that just hasn't been the case all year. I feel like Brock Purdy
to make plays.
I don't think he's not gonna have. If that's the case, I think if Brock Purdy doesn't have to do anything, I think they blow the fuck out of the Chiefs.
I'm just saying, one of my player props is he's going under pass attempts. Okay.
Yeah, same. I have the same thing. I think, but here's the thing. I think there's gonna be a lot of explosive passes.
That's true. This is
the Chiefs have to come down. They have to stop the run. And then I think there's going to be, rather it be even an easy pass, like a screen or whatever, but it could be like a play action boot where he hits Kittle for a 20-yard gain. You know what I mean?
San Francisco was second in the NFL in explosive play rate this year. Kansas City defensively was second in the NFL. So this is the Chiefs don't really allow explosives. The 49ers really always generate them. But yeah, I agree. If the Chiefs are focusing that much on the run, especially off play action, the explosives can be created. But we'll see, because there is some truth to what Chiefs fans are saying about, and what Durcant said a little bit. Brock Purdy has an 88 passer rating this year in the playoffs, and those were against 2 defenses in pass defense that ranked I think Packers were 24th. Detroit was
Packers was the rain. I've already discussed this. He's fucking what's Dan Orlovsky in the rain, and then against who else? Detroit. The low key thing about Detroit is they have a very good run defense.
Yeah.
So, and although the Niners ran it decent, especially towards the end of the game, I think that's what they struggled with.
4.7 yards a carry.
They struggled with early in the game, and I think to a certain point, as much as they are the best EPA passing game, a lot can be said about when Shanahan's offenses don't run the ball at least decently. They fall back. That gets you into their weaknesses.
They're
so
not
that's
a straight drop back, yeah.
I think I don't necessarily think like Purdy won't have to do a lot. I think he's still gonna have to make plays in critical moments, but
obviously,
I don't think the game plan should be that he has to do a lot.
I'm just like, I feel like I feel like Purdy hasn't been as dominant as I kind of expected him to be in these playoff games. Like even from a statistical perspective, which he was in the regular season, he just hasn't been able to replicate that. But maybe he can in this Super Bowl against a really good passing defense. Is there anything else we want to go in here? Yeah, Durcant, go ahead.
Like I just feel like we've said that about a lot of 49ers games this year. Like Brock Purdy, whatever Mitch just said about Brock Purdy, like we're setting the under on his attempts. Brock Purdy, he'll obviously have to make plays. He's the quarterback. It's just how football works. But the game won't be on his shoulders. And it seems like every time we do say that, it just isn't the case. Like I
think the two games you're thinking of are Ravens and Packers, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And those are recent games.
Yeah. Well,
like, is that a game plan thing? Like, do they just
no? But that's more of a Shanahan thing than it is a Purdy thing, though, right?
That's what I'm thinking. Like, I think there's a good chance that they throw the ball more than we would like.
But I think that plays into the and I almost think unless it's all play action, that almost plays into the Chiefs' hands more than it does the.
And that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, the Chiefs can't stop the run. We know they can't stop the run, but Kyle doesn't seem. Like Kyle will run the ball,
and I don't think why you said getting a lead, and that's why we think getting a lead is so big for the Chiefs.
But will Kyle be willing to do what Buffalo did, and that's just literally run the ball 2 out of 3 downs, if not every play?
Yeah,
will he be willing to do that?
They threw a lot of screens
every first and second down.
Yeah, or I don't know. Like it's like they just throw down the field so much when it almost feels unnecessary in these types of games. Like he's relying too much on Brock Purdy's shoulders. That is my concern.
Yeah, actually, that's probably mine too. What do you think?
We also don't know how the Chiefs will be able to defend that, though.
They have the best corners in football.
Yeah, but what we're saying is
the Niners are by far the best offense in the league.
But the 49ers in the passing game didn't light it up. Brock Purdy's not been a great playoff performer, and this is the best pass defense he's faced in the playoffs.
But what's the question here? Are we saying that Purdy?
Do you rethink how relied upon is the run game going to be for Kyle Shanahan in this game?
I think it's going to be balanced, but it's mostly about how do they get effective yards on early downs. As long as they can stay out of 2nd and 12 and 3rd and 8+, they'll be fine. It doesn't matter. They're a good passing offense. They're a good running offense, especially from those under center looks where they can dictate the matchups where you have to play the run and you have to play the pass. So like they can find their matchups that way. I don't know. It's like,
and then I think
it's a little bit disrespectful of the Niners offense to say that they have to run it every play.
I feel like in this specific matchup, though, that's would be very favorable.
I'm looking at it as that's the Chiefs. The Chiefs suck against the run. You have the best offensive lineman against a backup on the edge. You have the offensive player.
Maybe Mitch is more concerned about their offensive line and pass pro than we are.
You traded for this guy last year to get you over the hump. I am giving my best player, Christian McCaffrey, the ball 25 times in the Super Bowl.
I think he'll touch it, yeah. Just combined touches, I think he'll have 25-30.
Yes. That's what
I agree.
Kyle.
No, this should be a run-heavy script, but, like, they're still going to throw it.
I guess to wrap up this, is there anything else we want to go into, or?
Not really. I'm intrigued to see how Spags comes out against the Niners' typical personnel. And then from there, what does he decide to do? And then how does Kyle adjust off of it? And then I think one of the key differences between Reed and Kyle, I think Reed is a better script caller. And I think where Shanahan is, to me, special is his ability to take the script and then build on it throughout the course of the game to like the third and fourth quarter, to where if they're able to stay in that game state where they're balanced, that's where they become very balanced or very dangerous, because then he starts to build on tendencies of a certain run to a certain play action.
Shanahan's almost like he'll react to what you're doing, even though offense is usually it's the other way. But
sorry, who?
Shanahan will almost be like a reactive offensive coach in a good way. Like it's usually,
I mean, he kind of has like the core thing, or like right now their personnel that they're going to do. And then he'll kind of feel out what you're doing, and then he'll react, and then he'll build upon his plays with other plays. And Reed kind of more, it feels like, especially this year with the Chiefs, they have a very good script. And then after the script, they kind of just like fall apart. And so I think for the Niners, from an overall game perspective, they need to try to stay in the game in the first half. And if they're leading, well, that's amazing. And then in the second half, I feel like they can really take over the game personally. But with the Chiefs, I think they need to try to build that lead early, or else I don't think they're really going to win.
Kyle's career against Steve Spagnuolo, 5-3, averages about 23 points per game. Obviously, two of the best at what they do. I guess the last thing we can talk about is like how effective do we think I'll ask durcant this. How effective do you think the 49ers will be in pass blocking?
I think that, again, like that depends on the game script. That depends how well they're running the ball. Are they utilizing play action, or are they dropping back and passing a little bit more than we want? Like, are they getting a little bit too predictable with their passing concepts, which I don't think will be the case. So I think their pass protection will be good enough. But there is a world where Karlaftis and Chris Jones tee off in this game. I'm just saying.
I'm more worried about, from the pass rush standpoint, I'm more worried about like the blitzes.
Yeah.
Like,
but I almost feel
what
like
I'd be worried about is like an unexpected slot blitz that hits Purdy and he doesn't see it coming, more so than the traditional 4-man rush. I think the Niners can handle their 4-man rush. I'm more worried about like the guys, if the Niners are in some condensed set and they send two corners and Purdy just drops back and gets hit. Like, that's a game-changing play. So,
but again,
that's
if
big.
you're running the ball 4 or 5 yards on early downs, they're kind of out of that. Like,
yeah,
they can't
it doesn't.
do that in 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. So that again, a lot of that is because of the game script. So I guess I'll like my overall feel of it is, I think both of these units are absolutely elite. I think the 49ers offense is wonderful. I think the Chiefs have been excellent defensively. Personally, like if I'm looking at this as a matchup, I think the 49ers have a slight edge for 2 reasons. One, like, I'm just going to be honest. The 49ers offense is just better than the Chiefs defense. Like, I'm sorry.
Wow.
But, like, the Chiefs defense has been great, but there's a reason it's been the Chiefs defense is top 3 to 5 in every stat. The 49ers are first in every stat. Like, they've just been more dominant. And more so is because I just feel like the matchup is bad. The 49ers have the best run game. The Chiefs defensively, again, we talked about it. They're not good against the run. I feel like McCaffrey and Debo were almost like they were designed in a lab for this game. They were so tailor-made for it. And even though I do think like if the 49ers are in drop back pass situations, the Chiefs are going to have more success than most teams would in those situations, even in man coverage. Like, I think them in Baltimore and like Cleveland are the only teams that have any hope of stopping the 49ers there. But San Francisco, like, it is fair to also say that their passing game has been pretty unstoppable in non-rain games this year. So they just have too many weapons not to make their plays in that game. And I think if San Francisco is running the ball effectively, that'll negate Casey's pass rush and their blitzes, like Mitch said. So I think that hurts their overall defense. I think the 49ers have a slight edge in this one in terms of a matchup.
Man,
Durcant, make the pick.
So
Is this going to be a Bucks Chiefs 2.0 or
Wait,
is this?
we haven't made picks yet. We're just talking about the offense defense.
Oh, I thought you made the pick.
I thought you made the pick.
I've not picked a team yet. Jeez.
Make the
Oh,
pick,
okay. Let's just get
pussy.
into it, dude.
You can't go ahead.
Okay, I guess I'm going. So I think this is an interesting. I think both teams have kind of the same objective.
Hello?
What is going on? I feel like I'm in the twilight zone on this.
I'm
show.
sorry. This is just the.
What is happening here?
Okay.
I was just talking about how the 49ers offense and the Chiefs defense matched up, and you guys.
I'm sorry. I was just throwing it. Okay. I think both teams have kind of the same objective, but both coaches have to go about attacking that objective in a different way. I think if I'm the 49ers, I'm trying to beat everyone else except for Mahomes. And if I am the Chiefs, I am trying to beat Brock Purdy instead of everybody else. It's kind of a situation where the Niners have a good quarterback, but every time they lose, it's because of that quarterback. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, every time they lose, it seems to be they just don't have enough offensive firepower. And are the 49ers willing to use their personnel advantage in the secondary to take advantage of that to the extent that I think that they could? Because I think the 49ers secondary is a lot better than Kansas City's perimeter weapons, personally. And I think the 49ers will be able to get pressure without Joe Thuney. And I'm not sure how well Mahomes would be able to respond if they're playing tight coverage, if they're bumping these receivers, if they're getting physical. But also, is Kyle Shanahan willing to put his foot down and go back to that Packers game plan and run the ball 30 times in the game and just say, Christian McCaffrey, you are my best player, win me the Super Bowl? Is he going to be willing to do that? Because I think that's the best way to go about it. Not the only way to go about it, but the best way. So when I look at games like this, I try to look at every possible win scenario for both teams and just add them up and see which team has more. And that's the team that's more likely to win. I think the 49ers could win in the shootout because as good as the Chiefs secondary is, the 49ers weapons are also fantastic. They are very explosive. Brock Purdy, at the end of the day, is a very good quarterback. Like, he could have an outstanding game in this game. Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in the league by far, and both in the ground game and through the air, I don't think Kansas City has any answer for him. George Kittle, like, is Justin Reed big enough to handle George Kittle? Are their linebackers athletic enough to handle George Kittle? I don't know. Deebo Samuel out the backfield, is he making a big difference? It's like, I think the Niners could win in a shootout, but I also think the Niners could win in a defensive game because at the end of the day, a defensive game, which is all Kansas City has really been playing all year, pretty much either team can win because there's only so many points you're putting up on the board. The reason why the Ravens were able to stay in that game and almost win for so long is because Kansas City only scored 17 points. You're going to have a chance to win the game if you only score 17 points. And I think if you replace the Ravens with the 49ers, I don't think the Niners make the same mistakes the Ravens did. And the Niners probably win that game, let's say 20-17. And I think for Kansas City, their only way to win in a shootout is, like I said earlier, a historically great performance by Mahomes and Kelsey and Andy Reid just giving Steve Wilkes the McTerrorist treatment. So I don't know. I think the Niners have more win scenarios than the Chiefs.
I don't know.
I bet on the 49ers, and I've placed like 6 bets on the Niners. I'm throwing a party in the game with the people that I bet against. So it's going to be a very tense game, especially if it's as close as I think.
The chance could be like,
But
run, white man, run.
But I think the issue is the Chiefs tendency to lollygag. It's kind of like the Packers, right? Me and
Bro,
Ultra,
just
me and
blew
Ultra
so
were
many
so me and
opportunities.
Ultra were so pissed watching that game
We
because
were so
the
pissed.
Packers had so many chances to put the
The
Niners
field
away.
goal
They just did,
miss, the fucking fourth
and they
down
lost.
mishap by the ref. Like,
So I see the Chiefs
sorry.
coming. I
Ultra's a
think Kyle
Niner hater.
and actually kind of throws the ball too much in the start. I think the Chiefs get the few stops. I think the Chiefs will have a lead, but Andy Reid will get you at least 14 points a game. But I don't think I can trust the Chiefs in the second half to do enough to close the game out. And I think Brock Purdy, the guy I've been riding with since before the season started, will get one final drive and get me one and get me paid. So
I
Brock
don't know if
Purdy,
this is like weird, but like I see the game very similarly to Durcant. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Brock Purdy, just please one more, just one more.
I kind of think like I've already picked the Niners. You guys know this, but the
Wait,
kind
you
of
picked the
way
Niners?
I've been envisioning this game is I feel like the Chiefs are going to get an early lead, and the Niners are going to kind of hang. They're not going to get blown out early, but they're going to hang around.
It's gonna be like the Packers game.
Then they're just going to turn it on, like somewhere in the third quarter, and they're just going to score like 2 straight touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they're going to be up 10 points or like at least a touchdown, and then they're going to finish it, and it's going to be like 27-20 or 24-20, something like that.
Is the Detroit game almost like if you would have said before the game, oh, 49ers going to win 34-31, I don't think many people would have been that surprised. But
and by the way, they were up 34-24, and then they let up.
But it's just the way it happened, with the Lions being totally dominant for the first half and the Niners being totally dominant for the next quarter and a half.
It's what it's reminiscent. It's very like Golden State Warriors, and it's almost inverse of the
Warriors with Durant.
No, I mean like it's like the way they played. Like they'll just like turn it on, it will be close, or like they'll be behind.
Yeah, or like
they'll
the
just turn it
Chiefs
on
years ago.
Or the Chiefs in the first Super Bowl against the Niners. I almost could see it. I could almost see it being the reverse of that game, where it's like the Chiefs are sort of outplaying them, but they can't quite separate, although the Niners kind of had some separation. And then the Niners just like have a stretch where they dominate. Their defense gets a key stop. They score a couple touchdowns, and then they win the game. Like that's kind of how I think.
The Rams in the title game a couple of years ago too, where it felt like the Niners controlled part of that game, but they weren't, and it wasn't enough margin to close the game. And in both of those aspects, the more explosive teams were able to come back quickly because they could score easier. Yeah. All right. For my prediction,
Ultra, just pick the Chiefs and get it over with.
Betting against the best quarterback and head coach in football is just a bad bet. I mean, it was when you're betting against Brady and Belichick, and it still is when you're.
What if he's not the best head coach?
I don't think Kansas City's offensive line is in a strong enough state for me to think that they can reliably come from behind or match points if San Francisco's scoring consistently. I think their interior is honestly too beat up to expose the Niners to the maximum ability in terms of their run defense. I do think the 49ers are going to lean into the run and run effectively. I think they'll be able to dictate the tempo of the game. I think they can negate the KC pass rush. I think the 49ers have been hardened by heartbreak and scars since that Super Bowl 4 years ago. I think if you just look at since that path, they were robbed the next year of legitimately defending their title because of injuries. They let that lead to the Rams slip away. They were red hot entering last year's NFC title game, and then Purdy went out. And you know, I think that those losses and those blowing those leads has hardened this team mentally and emotionally. I think they are here and they've been on a mission to win. I think this was their goal all year. And in those two games, the 49ers, like we just said, they weren't explosive enough to pull away on the scoreboard. This year's reversed. I don't think the Chiefs are explosive enough to pull away on the scoreboard, like Mitch said. I think the 49ers are explosive. They are, like I said, second in explosive play rate. So they can explode in a hurry. And the 49ers, They won that close back and forth game against the Packers. They came back against the Lions. Those are two things that they hadn't shown an ability to do in recent years. I think they're a different team to what they've been in the past because
He's gonna do it.
And I think they're one that's finally going to get it done. The 49ers, the San Francisco 49ers will be your Super Bowl 58 champions. The 49ers will win 27-24. Christian McCaffrey will be your Super Bowl MVP.
I'm with that pick.
And I'll have to retire any of my Kyle Shanahan hate for the rest of eternity.
And with that, thank you. I'm revoking all of my bets. We all picked the 49ers. Now they're going to lose.
I genuinely think the 49ers are going to win. Like that this is not me like being like trying to jinx or anything like that. I think the 49ers, there are so many people just picking the Chiefs.
Yeah, they are.
Mitch said this at the beginning.
Overwhelming.
Mahomes, and some are saying Mahomes and Andy Reid. I feel like the 49ers are feeling the disrespect. I don't think people are taking seriously enough how big of a mismatch that run game versus that run defense is. And I feel like people aren't taking into account enough, one, how much the 49ers have been hardened emotionally and mentally by those losses, and two, just how big I think those wins, especially with how they came, with the close game against Green Bay and the comeback against Detroit, have given, how much confidence that's given that team as a whole.
Ultra, you picked the Chiefs last year, right?
Yes, I picked the Chiefs last year at 35-31.
And we all picked the Bucks against the Chiefs.
No,
right?
you can't pick the Chiefs.
Oh, fucking clown.
Did I pick the Chiefs?
Yeah, you picked the Chiefs.
I don't even remember that.
Ultra remembers these things.
I saw it the other day. Three of us picked the Bucs. So I picked San Francisco to win the first Super Bowl against the Chiefs. I was wrong. I picked the Bucs to win the next year. I was right. Picked the Chiefs to beat the Eagles last year. I was right. Mitch picks against the Chiefs in every single Super Bowl they've been in.
In every single playoff. Hey, since we're wrapping it up, chat, here's a fun fact. Mitch has picked the Bills in every single playoff series against the Chiefs.
Of course. Go Bills.
I don't actually know who's your
Mafia.
in 19 or last year for the Chiefs.
19, I think I picked the 49ers.
You know what's weird about that too? I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl before the playoffs started, and then I didn't pick them to win the Super Bowl.
Well, you predicted them to beat the Saints.
Just because I think I wanted the Niners to win the Super Bowl.
But in your playoff predictions, you picked them to beat the Saints in the Super Bowl instead of the 49ers.
Okay. I mean, either way. Let's go. Bang, bang. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate everybody. Yeah, appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully you gain some knowledge about this game. Hopefully you guys enjoy the game. Just so everybody's aware, I won't be live during the game, but I will be reacting to it at some point that night. And then I also have a Bleacher Report stream the following day, I believe, and I'll be reacting to the game on Bleacher Report as well. So you can check me out on both of those. Hopefully everybody has a great time. Hopefully everybody eats a lot of nice food and does whatever, has some fun with friends, maybe, I don't know, family. But enjoy the game, man. It's going to be fun. And yeah, hopefully the Niners pull it out, but who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It's the Super Bowl. We'll see you back here soon on the Bottom Line View. Thanks for an awesome season of BLV versus Consensus. We'll have some off-season episodes, but won't be one probably for a while. Maybe we'll do a post reaction to the Super Bowl. We'll see. But thanks for everybody. And all season long, the members, the patrons, appreciate the support. Peace, guys.